Bertrand Russell once said, "The problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves, and wiser men are full of doubts." Regional anesthesia has a history of nearly 160 years, and having traveled this long, it would be good to reaffirm our confidence in its value. It gives me great pleasure to invite our next speaker, Dr. Sugandha Ganpati, who will present her view on the topic, "Does regional anesthesia benefit the patient?"
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the kind introduction, Malati. Normally, whenever I talk to my patients promoting my regional anesthesia, because I'm an avid regional anesthetist, I'll tell them, oh, you'll throw up less, your pain score will be better, and you can sleep better, and that's all I told them. But does that matter? Can I not achieve the same thing with a big dose of granisetron up front and some dexamethasone up front and some midazolam and Ativan at night? They might sleep better, they might not throw up as much. So those things have taken a secondary point at this point in time. So I want to show you what has attracted me in the recent days. I'm not interested in the first 24-hour, 48-hour outcome with the patient. That can be managed with very many other adjuvants. So I want to know what happens in the big picture. Do I make a difference to the patient is the question that I ask myself. So what are the benefits that I'm going to talk about? One is reduced blood loss. Second is the incidence of myocardial events being less with regional. And the thing that has attracted me the most now is the reduction in cancer spread. And reduced nausea and vomiting I'm not going to discuss, although it is important. And the last one is the postoperative cognitive decline. Why is it important? That is going to determine the death rate and the length of hospital stay. Both are very critical, one for the hospital, one for the patient. Where is the evidence? The first paper I'm going to quote is lower extremity vascular surgery procedures. And this is a large retrospective study, and it is published in the Vascular Surgery Journal actually. This is just came this year. And they had number of patients, total number of patients were 5,462 overall, 4,700 received general anesthesia, only 694 received regional anesthesia, and I'm really surprised at that. And anyway, what was important was there were several things that were significantly different between the two groups. Residents were more involved in the regional compared to the general. Patients requiring transfusion was significantly reduced in the regional group compared to the general group, and the number of units transfused were also significantly less in the regional group. Does it make a difference? Yes, my transfusion is going to affect immunological status of the patient. It may also affect, if I had a bypass surgery, whether my arteries are going to remain open, inflammatory response is going to be altered, and transfusion is loathed upon nowadays. Apart from the transfusion reactions, it may significantly affect outcome. Joanne Guy from Montreal, she is one of our visitors. She is now into Cochrane reviews and multiple reviews she will do. And she compared blood loss between neuraxial as well as neuraxial anesthesia as well as general anesthesia. And this was a study to evaluate the neuraxial block on surgical blood loss and the number of patients requiring blood transfusion. And what did she notice? Regional anesthesia reduced the number of transfused patients, P of less than 0.0009, which is fantastic for me, and that was very effective for spinal fusion particularly. The reduction in measured blood loss that did not lead to reduction in the number of transfused patients also was found to be significant in hip surgery. Every one of us do hip surgery nowadays, so that is an important thing for me. And some of the other areas it didn't make much difference, but it certainly made difference with the disc surgery, peripheral vascular surgery, prostatectomy, cesarean section, and bowel surgery. It made a difference, the number of blood units that you transfuse. So that is important for me. Blood is very expensive in Canada, although we have a system of Red Cross donation, retrieval. It becomes very expensive for us, surely because of all the tests we have to subject these bloods to, HIV and so many of these antibodies we test, and the risk of transfusion reaction. Some Canadians took us to court because of not doing those tests at some point in time. Judge Creever inquiry told us, no, you guys need to do all these tests. That makes each transfusion unit well over $600 for us. That is expensive. What about regional anesthesia after orthopedic surgery? So this is from an orthopedic journal. I'm really excited that these data appear in non-anesthesia journals. That means others are looking at it as a critical factor. So the orthopedic surgeons looked at distal radial fracture. It's a simple thing. All of us would have done a simple supraclavicular block and would have gone home, wouldn't even have thought about what happens to these patients. But these people did such a beautiful study out of this because they had a good database. And what did they notice? They noted the pain score at 6 months, that is chronic post-surgical pain we are talking about, that was reduced significantly by the regional group. And the P was 0.004. This doesn't work, okay. That is the first line, which does 0.004. And they achieved much better motion once they received regional anesthesia initially. That is nice for me. What do I want when I have surgery? I want to go back home how I was before I had my injury. And regional anesthesia facilitated that. I couldn't ask for more. And this is the first evidence, and this is a more recent paper actually. There were other areas of difference in functionality that they noted with this introduction of regional anesthesia in the initial phase. And that persisted up to 12 months. So here we have, I call it a cure for the maladies of the human race with fractures and accidents. So I think regional anesthesia is there to help our patients for a long, long, long time. So their conclusion was, unless there is a contraindication, patients should be offered regional block and when undergoing open reduction and internal fixation of distal radius fracture. This makes me very happy because at some point my surgeons were after me. They wouldn't let me do the blocks until we got the block room because they told me, oh, you delay my OR, my last case has to be cancelled. Here the surgeon is coming and telling me, do blocks on my patients. That's fantastic. I take this kind of papers to my surgeon when they give me woes in the operating room. Then what about the post-operative cognitive decline? And this was published again, it's a Cochrane review published by the British group in Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. And they did a systematic meta-analysis. And I'm not going to show you all the details because there are several graphs and it gets very dizzying if I presented everything. Basically, if you look at this, this is the odds ratio. You had 1.34 times chance of getting squirrely-whirly and confused if you have a GA compared to regional anesthesia. That's enough for me. Each one of those POCDs cost us millions of dollars because the discharge is delayed and the family is dissatisfied and patients come to harm. And so if I can reduce that by that 30%, this is fantastic for me. So I do believe regional anesthesia is there to say, particularly in the elderly. And that is provided you keep those narcotics away from our patients. And there is nothing else that can allow me to do that other than regional anesthesia. What about nerve injuries? So I didn't think that we made a difference to nerve injuries. I thought we produced nerve injuries with our nerve blocks. And Jim Hebel and his group, along with a Swedish group, looked at perioperative nerve injuries following shoulder arthroplasties. And perioperative nerve injury associated with shoulder arthroplasty odds ratio when you have a nerve block was 0.47. That blew me away. Now this is the one I'm going to take to my surgeons. I said, don't say no to my interscalene blocks. I produce less nerve damage. And the other thing that they noted was that the nerve injuries recovered faster if I dinged a nerve, and those patients recovered faster. And the surgeons dinged the nerves 13% of the time. I dinged the nerve probably 2.7% of the time. Whatever happens, and they recover much faster if they had a peripheral nerve block given to them. So that is another attractive feature for me. And Andre Bozart's journal, he is the editor of this journal, and he has a paper. I thought it was Trip Bartkenmeyer was there, but obviously not. In a retrospective case review, that overall hospital length of stay tended to be shorter in orthopedic surgery patients receiving single peripheral nerve block and continuous peripheral nerve block. I would have believed if he says continuous peripheral nerve block because I checked them out on the day of surgery. But it is also single peripheral nerve block that they allows the patients to stay less in the hospital. And that is attractive for my hospital and my CEO because we have less funds transferred from the government for me to process patients. And the elderly patients in the medicine occupy my orthopedic beds. So sometimes my PACU gets clogged. So if something can help me to get these patients out of the hospital faster, that is useful for me. And that's useful for the patient. How? All my patients, if they stay in the hospital long enough, will pick up my MRSA and methicillin resistant Staph aureus and some of those weird and wonderful drugs, wonderful bacteria. You can reduce that if you can send them out of the hospital faster. And the next paper was from Marhofer. Does regional anesthesia really improve outcome? That came in 2011. And he looked at several reasons why things will be better. He looked at anti-inflammatory effects of the peripheral nerve blocks, and that was positive. Combined spinal, sciatic and femoral nerve, as well as thoracic epidural, reduced the inflammatory response, and the functional recovery was better. And he has a whole slew of things, but majority of them were epidural, thoracic paravertebral, and only one study with the combined femoral and sciatic nerve blocks. So obviously, if you treat thoracic epidural as a regional technique, yes, we play a role in reducing inflammatory response. I used to do thoracic epidural for cardiac surgery, and I was trying to measure the IL-6, IL-8, IL-10, all that kind of blah from the plasma. I could not measure it with a minimally invasive surgery in patients who had thoracic epidural. Whereas if they didn't have it with the general anesthesia, I had to use the regular kit. For this regional group, I had to use the ultra-sensitive kit to measure. Now we know, since that time I did that study, IL-6 a predictor of inflammation as well as chronic pain and acute pain modulation. So we do make a difference to the patient's perception at the molecular level. Somebody compared effectiveness of regional versus general anesthesia in hip fracture. Mark Newman, I thought he is chairman at Duke University. Lee Fleischer is an avid researcher of outcome. He's very famous in the United States. So they had a retrospective data from 128 New York State hospitals, total of 18,168 patients. There was no difference in the unadjusted mortality between GA and regional anesthesia. But when they adjusted for the preoperative risk factors, regional anesthesia resulted in less mortality and morbidity, odds ratio of 0.71. That basically amounts to about 30% reduction in mortality. That I believe is significant. Fewer pulmonary complications with regional anesthesia, 6.8% versus 8.1%. If my patient does not oxygenate himself or herself on room air greater than 90%, they cannot go home. So that has major implications in my hospital with the length of stay. If I reduce pulmonary complication, I'm friends with my hospital CEO. So Spencer Liu reviewed it, and this was a few years ago. And he suggested, this was in 2007, he suggested at that point in time he didn't have adequate data to say RA is better. The reason was he felt we are not doing studies looking at patient-reported outcomes. That's what he wants now. I've got a couple of studies going, but by the time I get my data, I might be retired. But there are others who are looking at it very objectively. I think if we do studies on regional anesthesia, it should not be just pain scores and nausea scores and things like that. It should be what the patient feels, what the patient thinks of what you did to them. Not immediately. 6 months down the road, 1 year down the road is what we need to do. In fact, one of my grant applications, that was the comment by the reviewer, she's not measuring patient-reported outcomes. Okay, so that is a big word in America now. Where is the evidence? Marie Hanna and Christopher Wu reviewed again in 2009. What they summarized was, perioperative use of regional analgesic technique may provide improvement in conventional outcomes, that is nausea, vomiting, pain, although the benefit appears to be limited to high-risk patients and those undergoing high-risk procedures. The benefits conferred by perioperative regional anesthetic technique need to be weighed against any potential risks of this and that should be individually based. So they are still not happy with whatever we have published with regards to outcomes. The next interesting stuff that I am passionate about now is cancer recurrence. When I read this paper, this came out of Israel, Exadaktilos, talked about reduced metastasis, say from 94% to 82%. Survival rate, it increased from 82% to 94% once you use the paravertebral block, okay? And at 24 months, again, significant difference between the survival rates following breast cancer surgery. So the retrospective analysis of about 300 patients suggested that paravertebral anesthesia and analgesia for breast cancer surgery reduces the risk of metastasis during the initial post-operative period. I read this and I said, oh my God, how can that be? How can that happen? Okay, so was there any other evidence? Oh, sorry. There were several putative mechanisms described. Some of my friends came and told me, you use morphine and it encourages vascular endothelial growth factor. What does that mean? It's going to support the circulation of metastatic foci. So you will get them growing like big trees because it is nourished by this vascular growth factor. Okay? So somebody did a look at, some Irish group looked at the concentration of VEGF and prostaglandin E2, and they didn't find any difference. The p-values between the groups that got the PVB and the group that didn't get the PVB never reached significance at any point in time. So they shot into my leg, and I didn't know where am I going with this concept. Okay, and sorry, I'm doing this repeatedly. Then somebody looked at percutaneous radiofrequency ablation of small hepatocellular carcinoma, and they noted the patients who had the epidural, some of them had reduced metastatic load. So there is something that is happening with regional anesthesia. It can be paravertebral block, it can be epidural. Something is happening to the patient that makes the metastasis grow less vigorously once you give them regional anesthesia. And this is also confirmed in a study from, again, the Israeli group, I think, and Dan Sessler from the US. What they did, they gave epidural anesthesia to patients undergoing radical prostatectomy for cancer. And when they looked at the survival, the epidural group survived much longer compared to the GA with opioid. So there is definitely some evidence to say that regional anesthesia helps reduce metastatic load. What are the postulated mechanisms of this benefit? One of the things that I believe in is that regional anesthesia allows you to preserve natural killer cell cytotoxic activity. What are natural killer cells? Those are the lymphocytes that as soon as you release some abnormal cells, they will go and swap them up and destroy them. And there is a number of cells that are involved. There is the capacity of the cell to destroy what they pick up in the form of foreign cells. Okay, morphine is notorious for obtunding natural killer cell cytotoxic activity. And there are beautiful studies in the animal experiments that shows morphine completely obliterates the natural killer cell cytotoxic activity. How do I manage pain in the post-op period? Morphine is cents and dimes for me, so we will put them on a PCA morphine and we'll happily go home. Even when I give the epidural, we'll add a little bit of morphine to my epidural and then I go home. So morphine is an integral component of our perioperative pain management. That has to change. Now, morphine is the worst offender with regards to natural killer cell cytotoxic activity. And the only way I can do that is with regional anesthesia, particularly peripheral nerve block. And there is also effect of morphine on angiogenesis, which allows tumor growth, which is the angiogenesis factor. But the group from Ireland are kind of casting doubts on that. And definitely, if you avoid morphine, you maintain immunocompetence. I had some talk on orthopedic anesthesia, and I was looking at when did people know morphine had immunosuppressive activity. That was in 1849. Cusacano or somebody from Pasteur Institute in Paris talked about morphine being a major immunosuppressant. So we use it without thinking about its immunological activity, but we need some alternatives such as the regional blocks. This is the group that looked at the Oren, and his group looked at the endothelial growth factor and prostaglandin E2, didn't find a difference. What about carotid endarterectomy? We are talking about postoperative cognitive dysfunction. When I was training, everybody drilled into my head, you do your carotid endarterectomy with the superficial cervical plexus bar or deep cervical plexus block. These patients have less strokes and things like that. So that was the attraction. So the group from Durham, North Carolina did a study. These are the surgical group actually. It's published in study in 2012. The rate of complications did not differ between the groups, but the duration of surgery was significantly shorter with the regional anesthesia, and the number of days that number of patients that was discharged the next day were significantly higher. What does that tell me? If the patient got discharged the next day, didn't have too many problems, otherwise they can't go home. If they had developed a stroke, if they had developed a myocardial infarction, if they developed an arrhythmia, because these are the prone patients for all those complications, they wouldn't have gone home. So these are surrogate evidence to say that regional anesthesia does help with multiple things, but if you measure individual outcomes, you may need a humongous sample size. You may not be able to get it from one institution. You need to do multi-center trials. But there is already a seed since last year that we need to look at it more objectively, not in an isolated institution. Do multi-center trials is what we need to do. Conclusion, regional anesthesia not only provides improved analgesia, less postoperative nausea, vomiting, for which I decided I'm not going to show you evidence, all of you know it already, but has several advantages for the patient. Reduced cancer recurrence, less postoperative cognitive decline, less adjusted mortality. I couldn't ask for more. There is a recent meta-analysis, Cochrane review we have completed, Joanne Guy is the one. We noted that regional anesthesia had less myocardial infarction. This has been confirmed by one of the Toronto investigators, which his name is Vijay Sundara, if you want to literature search him. He also documented regional anesthesia reduced the myocardial infarction by 1.5%. 1.5% when we have about 2 million people is a lot of myocardial infarction. So I do believe regional anesthesia has a lot to offer our patients. Some of it are blatantly seen by us, others are so subtle, you can only realize it in a bigger, large scale study. Thank you for your attention. Okay, it must have been clear as crystal. Or it blew you all away because it was all over the map with regards to advantages. Anyway, this is something new that I am living with nowadays, rather than the same old nausea, vomiting, activity-related pain score, rest pain scores, and sleep scores. Those are passé, those are 20 years old, 15 years old. These are within the last 10 years what has panned out.